How's it going, everybody? How's it going? How's it going? How's it going? You're watching one of those kids meet videos. That's great. I am not doing that. I am not doing that. Okay. So last night we were working on this, and I got it basically kind of working, and I was like, all right, in the morning, we'll clean it up and finish some things. And so I just cleaned up a thing where it's like, um, we were making it so the way that I programmed it, we had like a per tile value to say that if if something changed, we need to rewrite it to the buffer on the GPU, and we ended up not using that granularity, and we may not at all for this game. So I was just like, screw it, we'll just put it per object thing. So like, it's all fine. Oh, except it's actually not working correctly, interestingly. Um, we broke something in that the particles are not appearing. That could be like a well, we'll debug it, right? So here, okay, we actually don't. The particles that we are working on are not the little ocean ripples ones. They're those ones that just appeared. So like, why when we started up? So when we do compute flows here, we need to set this as dirty. All right. That's a problem. Because that used to be implicit. So it used to be implicit in the constructor of this thing, right? Or the initializer. We don't have constructors in this language. So also here, okay. Okay. Has the real name been leaked now? No, that's not the real name of the game. It is not the real name of the game. It is one of the candidate names. And some months ago, I was tired of it saying Sokoban because nobody knows what the hell that means. So I put something more like a name in there. All right, so this is weird. That's not that weird, I guess. Like, okay, so something broke in the undo thing. I guess we're just not setting it dirty there. So we were just looking at that code yesterday. Undo did ocean change. Okay, well, compute flows is supposed to set it dirty. That's the function we were just editing. No, maybe not. No, yeah, because we set it dirty down here. I mean, we could just move this up here to be really obvious about it. Okay, this comment no longer applies because we always said we fixed the problem mentioned in that comment by doing if it works. So I guess I'm just gonna try to figure out what's happening here. So we did that one as well. So, okay, per frame update ocean flow buffers. Okay, if we resize the flow data, okay. So there's actually something missing here. So if force everything dirty, let's put this up here, right? Emacs. We don't need that line. We actually don't need this because that'll happen down there. No check in copy or let's just do this. So the flow data is this ocean flow info. And the reason I'm not going to just do this in here is we're going to have other reasons for force everything dirty. All right. But the point being, if we force everything dirty for buffers.flow data, so we're just going to initialize everything to default value. That's not the problem that we are currently seeing, but it's just I was looking at the code and I was like, oh, we're not doing that when we resize the buffer. It's the advantage to working on things when you're not tired late at night is you look and you're like, aha. Islands at a reasonable distance. Well, code is so clean and easy to read, rare thing to see in complex projects. Here's the thing. Like, yeah, software gets complex sometimes in terms of what it has to do, and code gets harder to understand, but it shouldn't ever get hard to understand at this level. Like, I haven't even started commenting this part because it's still pretty simple, right? Sometimes I put bigger comments, as you can see. If you see code that's just doing something like this, and it's gnarly and hard to understand and uncommented, there's honestly no excuse for that. And I'm not saying people don't do it. Like, people who work for me do it sometimes. And I'm just not going to put up with it anymore because it's really like a sign of people not caring. Because it's just not that hard to make code like this understandable, you know? But all the time you see stuff and you're just like, what is going on? And like, we just have to change programming culture to where that's embarrassing. Like, if somebody types that, it's embarrassing. And then it'll get fixed. It should be 4. What? Did I? Oh, yeah. No, you're right. That's me still waking up. Let's make sure things compile. I was just typing the word force in close proximity to 4, and my brain typed the word force. This whole thing we figured out last night. It takes so long because there's stupid ass efficiency cores on European cores on this machine. So I still haven't rebooted to turn them off. And I don't know what else to do about that. Use comments if your code is weird for a reason. Yeah, I mean, you don't want the kind of comments that say obvious things all the time either, right? Because then people just ignore them. And then when there's comments that really matter, they probably won't read them because they're used to not caring about comments. So, okay, so what do we do now? This is still not going to work. I'm just double checking that this isn't going to happen, right? So we're going here. Okay, well, that's broken too. So anyway, we go here. We change the water path. That's all working. The particles change. Oh, that's great. But I hit reset. Oh, it worked. I'm not sure why what we did fixed that, but I'll take it. I'll take it. Oh, it didn't work that time. What's the difference? Oh, no, it did. Wait, did I do this before? So, no, wait, it didn't work. Hold on. So I ran around it, and then it undoes. So if I do this, and then I directly undo, it's fine. If I reset, it's fine. This might not have anything to do with what we're working on. It could be a weird bug in the This feels like a weird bug in the undo system, which I heavily worked on a couple months ago, and we just haven't tested it on much river stuff. So just the river part of the undo system might be broken. I'm going to not worry about that. I'm going to try to repro that later because again, we don't want a rat hole on things. But yeah, it looks to me there's a whole like aggregation of moves that's kind of like texture mapping that happens in the system, and it looks to me like the river is not being properly handled in that. So we're going to think about that later, but it might also be this, but I don't feel like it is. All right. So assuming that that's not the problem, my next move is just see how it's snapping square by square on both sides. Like when it goes away, it's going away a square at a time. And then when it appears, it's appearing a square at a time, but it's sort of hidden by all those particles, right? Um, we already, like before we went and started restructuring this code, that there already were mechanisms to do that. So let's turn that back on. So okay, here's what we're going to do. So we have these flow updater entities that are always overwriting everything. And I guess what we do is just every frame. Like maybe that code shouldn't be in here. I put this in here because we were just moving code around, right? Um, let's say let's try doing it like this. Magnitude maybe later overwritten. Okay. So here in the per frame update that we did, we're going to say modify magnitudes due to flow updaters. All right. So that's going to be here. Okay, this progress T, we didn't move. Where? Oh, we already have a function called per frame modify cosmetics based on flow updaters. So why don't we use that? Okay. All right. Cool. And so here we're doing all this stuff. We do progress T. I'm not sure. I don't think we need to do all this code, but I'm going to leave it there for a second until it works because, again, we've been restructuring things. I think we just look at our global buffer now instead of doing all this object to world to object, whatever. Okay. So I'm going to put that back in there. I'm going to put this out here, actually. Okay, so we've got this progress T. Okay. So now this erasing T and filling T. Okay, let's just... So basically this magnitude goes into tileinfo.w. No, not that. Sorry. Hold on. Hold on. We want this world index. So we start with the world space position. Like, I'm not really sure that we should have active river tiles on the ocean. Honestly. Like, why? Why is that not just global? But we'll think about that later. We don't want to rat hole this. We want to finish this and check it in, but that active river tiles doesn't have to be there, I don't think. And that would help. Like, we're just looking up this ocean just so we can get this river tile, just so we can copy the river tile back into a buffer, right? It's like the code is certainly more convoluted than it needs to be for what it does, and whenever you see that, you should simplify it, right? But one step at a time, okay? Okay, so what we need right now is we need to set this magnitude, all right? And so we need the world index, and we could get it by this messy way, but hopefully we can get it some better way. And then we need to do this. So we need to go here, and des direction magnitude dot w is magnitude. Okay, like that. Okay, so we need that world index is what I was looking for. And I'm sure. I mean, we. What is start square for? So square position is the square that we're overwriting, and so we don't use this start square at all. We're going to delete that. Square position is where we are actually writing the value, and that's a world space position. So the world index should be position to index of manager.proximity grid, which actually we can just say manager, I think. And square position. And I think that's fine. And like, I actually, whoops. We may just be able to delete all that ocean modification code anyway. Dude, turn off the E-cores, please. Magnitude is 1 minus progress t. All right. The start program can accept a CPU affinity mask. What am I supposed to do with that? Like, they expect people to do this in order to make their computer run in a reasonable way. Like, at some point, I just refuse to cooperate. And that point is now. I just refuse. It's too stupid. I didn't make this problem. They made this problem. It's not my problem. Well, we crashed. That is my problem. See? This is why I don't spend any energy on stupid crap like that people keep doing, because I have enough problems. All right. We're taking a little bit of time to start up now for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. Where's our... Does this thing give me an output console? Oh, we're at a breakpoint. It's just... It's easy to not notice that in this program. All right. There's our int3 array bounds check fail. Interesting. Oh, is world index -1? It's 284. Buffer's flow data is not initialized. That's weird. Let's just we'll hack this for now, but I don't think that should be legal. So we'll investigate why later, but we want to make sure that we really want to do it this way before we go debugging this way, right? We want to like get the structure to where it should be. Do I have any ideas for talks? No. I'm kind of tired of doing talks because they're a lot of work and people don't seem to appreciate them as much as I would like a lot of the time. Okay, so here we're working. I mean, I do get positive feedback on a bunch of talks, but you know, I had some around 2021, 2022, like I had 3 specific talks where I put a bunch of work in and it just wasn't worth it. And it's like, why don't I just spend that energy on making things, which is also very hard, right? Okay. So, hey, look, it just worked. Like you'll notice now the river is going smoothly instead of square by square. So that's great. Obviously later it will be a nicer effect than a cyan rectangle. But we do these things step by step in video games, right? We do these things step by step. What type of response do I want? To not have my talk shut down in the middle, or, you know, not have people think I'm a fucking idiot for being concerned about real issues in software. Like, you know? So... I've had multiple talks shut down in the middle. Usually just for like going over some time limit that I didn't nobody told me was a hard time limit until the actual thing, and that's fine. But the problem is, so here's part of it is different expectations, right? So if you're in a room full of, like, let's say academics, right, which is one of these cases, all those people, they have their 20-minute spiel that they've given the same talk of, 12 times a year for like 5 years and slowly modified it the whole time, right? So anytime they go and talk, it's a low effort thing for them and they don't really care, right? Um, Whereas if I'm going to go do a 20-minute talk, I have a very modern attitude about this, which is like, look, it's going to be on YouTube. So, like, you shouldn't give it more than once because the video's up and people can just see the video, right? And so I work on something unique for that occasion, which is hard. It takes a lot of time and energy to come up with something new to say, especially, when you're like, who is this audience and how do they think about things and how do I communicate to them? And so you do a 20-minute thing and then you go to the thing and it's like, oops, it's going a little bit over time and will be 23 minutes. Um, or something like that. And then you get cut off before like the ending because they decided it was a hard cutoff, even though it was implied in the emails you said to them beforehand that it was okay if you went a little bit over. Like it just sucks because it's very draining to put all that time and energy into something and then like you go somewhere and that's not the only. There have been so many things. So like there have been a number of game conferences where you put a bunch of work into like an hour talk. So the previous thing I was alluding to was a 20-minute talk, which is hard in a certain way because you want to scrunch it down and make sure you say everything in a short amount of time. An hour talk is different because it's just more volume of work, right? And so I've definitely had a couple of conferences I was thinking of where I put all this work into an hour long talk. And then I go and like the guy doing the conference doesn't really care that much. He just wanted somebody with a recognizable name there to like boost ticket sales and kind of nobody gives a shit and it sucks, right? So I've done that a number of times. There was also the time at fucking Nottingham Game Festival when I prepared a 2.5 hour talk all about all the design decisions in Braid because they were going to do an archival recording. I go there to do the talk. The dude's so disorganized. His like audio dude isn't there to turn on the equipment and he doesn't know how to do it. So we're literally standing there in the hall with this giant audience for 45 minutes while he like tries to find someone who knows how to turn on the equipment. And then we finally get the talk started. And I'm like, okay, since we're this far overtime, since we started this far late and it certainly wasn't my fault, do we get to go that far over, right? And the dude's like, no, because we have this sponsored dinner and, they paid money for the sponsorship and whatever. And we have to end before that. So I had to like cut 45 minutes off my thing, off a 2.5 hour session. And that's so like, it just sucks to like fly all the way from California to England, right? And prep something that this one was a long time ago, but it's one of the more, this is just what happens when you give speeches, right? This is one of the more egregious examples. So, yeah, fortunately, and and the worst thing about that was he was all saying like, yeah, we're gonna make a really high quality recording of this, and this will be like one of the official archival recordings about what was going on with Braid, and so you can put a lot of effort into it and stuff. And then he has never released the recording at all, ever. He's just been a complete dick about everything. Fortunately, somebody took iPhone like shaky cam of the talk, and so you can still kind of find it on YouTube. Hopefully, if that hasn't been taken down as like iPhone shaky cam. Um, but I don't. I think that's not even the whole thing, right? It just I've been screwed over by this kind of thing so many times. At some point, I'm like, why should I keep doing this, right? Unless it's a particular party that I really know and trust, like why should I keep doing it? Classic Nottingham. Yeah, I don't know these things because I don't live there, right? But like it was so stupid, dude. Better off just posting your own video. Yeah, that's the thing too. Is like if I want to just get like a talk message out, I can just record it at home. Or I could even, I could even do a thing where I rent a room if I want it to have a live talk energy. I could rent a room and invite some friends over and just do it at the time and place of my choosing, right? I mean, I have kind of a big enough apartment here to just do it at home, but the thing is, there's not that many video game people here. There are a couple. There are a couple. But, like, yeah. It just. Most of these game conferences are just like amateur hour. I just don't. I just don't see the point. But I do think so. This is the thing: is I do think it's valuable to have these talks on the internet for sure. Most of them, some of them, they just get ruined by these processes, and it's not as valuable. So we'll see. Anyway, that's a long answer to like why I don't do that as much anymore. It's also just the other reason is, I mean, this game still isn't done, and it's been going for a long time, right? So I really just should maximize effort on getting this done now so that it gets out there and then we can move on to the next project. And that might be a nicer time to just give some talks and whatever. But honestly, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure where I would give. So, in this game, we've been working very, very hard in several directions. Like, obviously, we made a whole programming language. I don't know where to talk about the design of that programming language in a serious way where people are going to understand because all the talks I see about programming language design are not very serious, right? Um, Maybe if people know of good ones, you could link them in the chat and I can go look. But I haven't seen any like good ones. Um, because I think people have just sort of stopped thinking new thoughts about programming language design mostly. Um, we've just sort of settled into a time where languages are certain ways. There's certain major ways that languages are, and you pick one of those, and that's your language, right? So that's thing one. The We've thought very, very hard about design. We've done a whole lot of deep design thought on this game. I don't know where to give that kind of a talk now, honestly, because I feel like that kind of thing is just really unappreciated. Like nobody really cares that much about game design now, which is weird. Like back when I gave all these game design talks, there was more energy in the games industry about really caring deeply about design and stuff, right? And then, it's 2024 and the last two games I played were Path of Exile and Indiana Jones. like so Path of Exile 2, I mean. So like and nobody cares like I don't know. Nobody cares. So I'm not sure. Maybe that's just how I feel right now. Maybe people do care, but like looking at the conferences you can't tell. Part of this is again, so just like companies decided not to hire on merit and instead hire on the basis of other parameters and have been suffering for that reason, conferences have been doing that too, right? So like conferences um They decide what conference they are and what they're about and what talks they showcase and invite and all these things, not really on the basis of merit, but on the basis of other parameters, right? And we've just, the industry has been suffering through that for like 10 years now. And after that many years, it just turns into like, there just haven't been that many legitimately good talks anymore because the whole, like, what a conference is has changed into something else, right? And nobody expects conferences to be good anymore. It was hard enough to make a conference good before, back when they were trying to make all the talks legitimately good, right? And now it's like, you know, I don't just mean the equity and inclusion thing is one way in which people have not been, uh, you know, uh, programming for merit. By programming, I mean like conference programming, not actual programming. But that's not the only one, right? It's like it's a society-wide onslaught, right? Um, it's about you know social change, right? If you do a talk that's about some kind of naive social change that doesn't make sense, um, you know that'll get promoted heavily, right? Um, Whatever, or addressing whatever one of the current things is, right? So if you give some game development talk related to climate change, like that'll get picked, right? So it's not just one thing. It's like the whole blue church pantheon of concepts is what works at a conference now, right? Most conferences, not true everywhere. So like if you go to Eastern Europe, conferences are less like that. But still in the US, like yeah, the game industry in the US is still very, very, very much like that. And I don't see signs of it changing, despite the fact that broader culture is changing rapidly. So we'll see. But that's yet another reason, like why, if I'm going to put a bunch of effort into preparing a talk, why would I do that for a conference that I think sucks and probably kind of doesn't like me anyway, right? Like, what? Why would I do that? So that, sorry, long answer to a simple question, but do I think Mike Acton's CPP talk had a lot of influence on the programming culture? I'm not sure which talk that you mean because, oh, you mean the CPP Con one? I think it did, but you got to remember he felt very negative about that talk at the time. Like he went to CPP Con, he gave that talk. It had very negative reception live at the conference, right? So I don't know. Like sometimes you just got to do that. Like I'm glad he gave that talk. I think it did influence a lot of people. But I also think it probably would have been better if he just recorded it in a room with like a reasonable audience who actually were good programmers, right? Because then you would have got better questions. You would have had better interplay in that part of the talk, right? But here's what's crazy, right? So someone else said, "Yeah, that's what he said at Handmade Con 2015," and I remember that talk too. And I'm like, dude, all this stuff is over 10 years ago, right? So like, okay, this issue, I guess, kind of won, but if you were going to talk about what are some of the major issues in like the structure of how to program that people think about now, it's still kind of that, right? Like we haven't even in 10 years, we haven't even moved past that. Like how much does that suck? 10 years. Like that's a long time. CPPCon has the advantage of getting more views. I mean, I think that was probably true back then, but I doubt that that's true now. You know, I doubt it. Yeah, the Better Software Conference, we'll see how that goes. Um, I mean, that's in Sweden or something, so again, it could be like Blue Church Central, but yeah, I think there's a problem just in the undo here. But maybe not. I mean, the speaker list didn't look too bad. We'll see. What advice would I give for the next generation of software engineers? There's only one piece of advice, really, which is that being good at programming is important, right? That's all. And just act as if that's true. Act as if it's important to actually be good at programming as opposed to just outputting software. Because almost every cultural trend is counter to that. And, you know, if you even say something like that, like on Twitter or whatever, you'll get bombed by people who are like, no, man, I can do low quality AI stuff and it's great. Or like the client doesn't pay for quality is like the number one reply. And it's just like, shut the fuck up and learn how to program. Jesus Christ. It's embarrassing what you do all day, every day. And you're saying like the client doesn't pay for quality. Just go work at McDonald's, right? I mean, you feel like the CPPCon and other talks changed the bike shedding subject from OOP to bike shedding about ECS. Yeah, well, this is my okay. Here's the problem, and maybe this is true about all things, right? But so Mike's talk was very good in that it raised awareness of a certain kind of way to program and all that, right? But at the same time, it started this whole like ECS fandom in like independent game development. And like I try to say this all the time, but you shouldn't do ECS if you're an indie game developer. You just shouldn't, right? It doesn't make sense for many reasons. You shouldn't do it. I don't do it. I have never done it. All right. There are ways like the core motivation behind ECS that he talks about in that talk is all true. Like the performance the performance downsides of object-oriented programming and of that way of thinking about things, and the upsides of, you know, structuring your data differently and thinking about it as a data-centric problem, that is all true. Correct. It is all correct. The thing is just ECS is overkill unless you're in the very specific kind of situation that Mike was in, or an analogous situation. And you just sink a large amount of engineering resources into something that's like essentially too complicated and too decentralized in a certain way to do what you actually need to do. And then it just makes it a lot harder to make your game. And so the right way to do it is to be data oriented, yes, as he says you should be, but like be data oriented in a way that does not require a large upfront investment and that does not place a lot of technical constraints on how your game works. And there's a number of simple ways to do that, but like, you know, just have your entities be simple data structures and store them in arrays, and that's literally 90% of the problem right there. That's all you need to do. You don't need ECS. You don't need to like have components for everything and whatever. It's not necessary. All the teachers and other students talk about is ECS. Yeah. I'm sorry about that. It's not necessary, right? If you look at what you actually need to do, here's what you actually need to do, at least in every game that I ever made, right? You need to have some number of different types of entities that have different data associated with them, totally. Okay? In this game, there's a lot. Like, I don't even know how many. There's like 60 or 70 entity types. I don't know. Okay. So you need that. Let's go to a better looking level while we're sitting here. While I'm just going to sit here and monologue, let's show something better for you. Let's go back to my favorite screenshot of the past month. Right? We're in a debug build, so we might crunch some textures. Just so it doesn't look like I'm a dumbass who like just draws rectangles on the screen, right? While I'm telling people how to program. So what you need to do, you have a certain number of entity types, okay? You need to be able to, you need to be able to do the following things. Run some kind of code per entity type that's the equivalent of what would have been the update function in an object-oriented, right? So like you have some per frame tick that you would call on an entity in an object-oriented scheme. You need to do something equivalent to that. I tend to do that by type. So I'll iterate over the types that I know need updates, and I'll update them in a batch instead of individually, right? And that, well, yeah, what the needs are there varies from game to game, but like you need to do that somehow. You need objects to be able to tick in some way. You tend to need to be able to iterate over a specific type of entity for other reasons. So for example, we were just doing stuff with flow updaters, which are the things that create flows in water. And you know, you just need to be able to write code. It's very convenient and desirable to be able to write code where you just say like, hey, for all the flow updaters, let's do this thing now. Very common, right? So you want to be able to do that. You want to be able to create and destroy entities, obviously, and have that not be super slow. So you don't want to be, for example, heap allocating every time you create an entity if you can help it. Even there, in this engine and in the witness, we're a little bit guilty because we don't heap allocate the individual entity, but like if it has string fields, we do heap allocate those, and that's not great. But that's fixable because you would just have a separate string space where you have a faster operation that happens. But so you would like to not heap allocate when you create an entity, and then you want to be able to iterate over all entities in the world, and then you want some kind of a spatial query to do like collision detection or just to run in tick code or whatever. You want to be able to say what entities are near this point. And that's like 80% of it, at least. There's a few other things. Okay, you want to be able to save and load entities. That doesn't really have very much to do with how they're stored, but you want to be able to serialize and unserialize entities. But like, as long as your system can do those things, that is all you need to make a game and do them efficiently, right? And you don't need ECS to do all those things, is what I'm saying. It's too much structure. What I always tell people, ECS is not bad, right? It just solves a problem that you don't have, right? The problem that ECS solves is when you have a separation of concerns, like you have an engine team and a gameplay code team, right? And you want the gameplay code team to be able to write code that is efficient without changing the engine, because that's a different team, right? If that's the problem that you have, then the people on the engine team want to make engine code that is very flexible, right? And provides a structure in which you can do all this data-oriented stuff that won't get slow for a lot of things that you want to do. That is the problem that ECS solves. If you don't have a separate engine team and gameplay code team, right? Or the equivalent is like, let's say you make an engine as a product, right? It's your company. Then maybe an ECS makes more sense also. But the problem is you're making your client also pay the complexity of using ECS for that efficiency. But at least you get right, if there's a wall and you can't change the engine code at will, then it's good if the people who made the engine code worked really hard to make sure that you can do things without performance declining, right? Because if they didn't do that and performance declines, you can't fix it, right? So that's the problem that ECS solves. ECS, like if you're just like, I'm making a game and I can change the engine code anytime I want because it's like mine, or I'm writing it from scratch anyway, that you don't have that problem at all. You can change, and if you run into a performance bottleneck, you can just change that to a better representation at any time, and it'll be less code, and the system will be less complicated because you'll change it to the representation that you need for your game. The problem with ECS is it doesn't know what you need for your specific use case exactly. It's just like for use cases generally, and so it's solving a much harder problem. And that means it's over engineered and it's more work to use and it's more work to create. So if you don't have that problem, don't do ECS. And that's why it's a shame that they're teaching it in schools, because students don't have that problem, right? It's hard enough to like make a game in one semester or trimester if you're at one of those schools. Like, don't be also like forcing people to do ECS stuff all the time. So, yeah. Okay, that was a long answer to that question. Just think how strange it would be to use ECS for a Pong game. Yeah, that would be strange. All right, let's go back to the bad looking level. These look pretty good though. You know, the force field needs some more work. But, it is what it is, man. All right. Ugly level. So, what do we do? So we have some undo problem that I'm going to have to look into separately. But apart from that, I feel like the functionality here is the equivalent. So the deal is, last night we started changing all this stuff and we were restructuring it, and now it is kind of restructured. So what I want to do, we have this also thing where it wasn't rendering correctly on the overworlds. And so we want to keep working on that, I think. It's still not rendering correctly on the overworld, so we could figure this out. But I feel like I want to check it in first to like take the W for the structural change, because it didn't really render correctly on the overworld before, right? Oh, yeah, there's a couple of issues, and this is, okay. So one of the things we haven't done, and that's probably the problem here, because you don't see these particles showing up at all. The problem is we're still picking a random ocean for the Z value. We haven't done the per square Z value, right? So we have to go to this thing, the new river. No, it's not there. Maybe it is. No, it's the ocean flow info here. This thing. So this thing goes to the shader. And the thing that's sad right now is we're already using all 4 components, so we're going to have to make this bigger. And just to be conservative and not have weird packing issues right now, I'm going to add another vector 4. But I'm going to put a big comment here. I added another vector 4 just so that we can add a Z value without worrying about packing issues, etc. If we keep this, if we want to keep roughly these values, we could change to an array of floats and index that by multiples of 5, or we could encode the direction as one float instead of a 3 vector, because ocean flow direction is in 2D, so we can just store the 2D angle. Maybe I should just do that. Hold on, let's look at the shaders of where this is used. So here's the thing is I'm old school, dude. I remember when shaders could only have 8 assembly instructions, and those instructions had to match fixed function pipeline operations anyway. What are we looking for? Direction and magnitude. So, but there's this trade-off, especially back then, where you would not really want to compute anything in the shader, and you would prefer to pre-compute things and put that in the data, right? That's not really so true now. I mean, you maybe still want to be biased that way, but it's okay to compute a few more things in the shader. So like a sine and a cosine of an angle might be fine, right? So simulate ocean interior particles. Literally, there's only one line in all the shaders that uses this value. It's this function called sample ocean flow, right? We don't have this loaded. You have too many subfolders. Okay, so we say sample flow buffer, right? And we're sort of clamping to the bounds of the buffer just to make sure. We actually probably want to wrap. I guess I'll put this in C mode so that people don't complain about not having highlighting. So that's fine. So the question is, if instead of just returning the vector 3 here, if we do a cosine and a sine, how bad is that? And so let's just see who calls sample flow buffer. Only one place. It's in the same file, sample flow buffer. Oh yeah, this is this big thing. I wrote this a while ago. It's this function that makes those little particles. Sample flow buffer. So we do this once per particle in the compute shader. So like, honestly, I'm not worried about it. But also what that means is I'm kind of not worried about using more memory. So here's the thing. Let's just put this context. We only use the XYZ components of direction and magnitude in one place, sample flow buffer, called once per part. I mean, does anyone know, like, how expensive is cosine and sine on a modern NVIDIA GPU relative to other operations? I mean, I'm kind of torn on just switching it. And like, do you get an approximation automatically? Like, that's a whole thing. I don't. Because we don't even, doesn't even need to be a high quality cosine and sine. The problem is, because game development is so screwed up, this is our own shader language that like maps to other things. And so I don't even know if we have a provision for lower quality functions, and if we did, how I would decide on that. Maybe syncos. I don't know if we have syncos. Sine of x equals x. Yeah, that's not going to work. Just put in a sine table for 360 degrees. That's probably slower than whatever primitive you would call. Would expect it to be basically free. On what are you basing that expectation? Can't you use a mask for direction? I mean, it is true. I mean, I was kind of leaving myself open to I mean, this is a good point. I was kind of leaving it open to have smoothly varying values over time, which I guess I want to keep for now. But yeah, it could literally be a 2-bit number, actually. And we could just look up, you don't even need sine and cosine, right? You could just look up in a table the 4 vectors from the 2-bit number. Or you could convert the bits without even looking in a table. So that's true. It's just I'm not sure I totally want to do that right now. Because like you change flow direction in the game, and maybe in the intermediate time while it's changing, you want it to sweep through that angle or something. You know what I mean? Are we going to release shader language too? I mean, we're going to release the whole engine, so people will have that. It's just like, it's not like I recommend this shader language. It's like just what we had to do because everything else is so stupid. Um, but like it hasn't had, you know, 1/50th the amount of work that's gone into the main programming language, right? So it is what it is. But it's fine. I mean, I use it regularly and it works, so it's great. X plus x cubed divided by 6, or x minus x cubed divided by 6. Yeah, I don't care about that right now. Do a Taylor series. I mean, you guys don't understand GPUs. Like, they're highly incentivized to have a fast sine and cosine because people call them all the time. So you could probably just do it. All right, we're going to stop rat holing on this, and I'm just going to make the current thing work. And we're not going to change it. If we want to change it, maybe we'll do that in a later stream. Actually, no, you know what? We are. We're going to change it. Fuck it. Okay. We're going to say theta. We're going to call it radians. What's the second value going to be? What are we trying to add? Radians, z, unused, and magnitude. Let's put z in the z slot. All right, so here we go. So when we do this, we're going to go theta, float theta equals ocean flow buffer sub index dot radians unused flow z and magnitude dot x. That's the radians. Vec3 result is vec3 of cosine theta, sine theta, and 0. And we return result. And that's all that is. Like, I just wanted to do that because, well... Now, this is confusing me, though, because... Is nobody using the magnitude? I thought I did a hole detection thing that uses the magnitude. Like, did I never check that in? Am I freaking out right now? All right. Yeah, it's not being used elsewhere in this file. And not in this. That's so weird. Maybe I had one of these source control glitches where, like, I updated and it removed that code. I don't even know. We'll put it back. It's fine. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're going to do cosine and sine, and we're going to return it. And so our CPU code needs to deal with this, right? What was it called? Direction and magnitude. We need to change that to... I mean, okay, wait, this is just stupid because this is a struct anyway. Like, who cares? Let's just do this. Radians unused Z magnitude. Why? Like, again, packing that into a vector 4 is like very old school. There's no reason to do it. What am I even doing, dude? What am I even doing? Okay, let's go back to the shader. Dot radians. Okay, boom. All right, so we do that. And now, direction and magnitude in water rendering. We need to change all of that. Dest.radians is not going to be the only one. Okay, okay. We're doing this thing where we set up the V here, and we don't really want that now. I think I have a direction to theta function. No, sorry, dest.magnitude. What am I doing? What am I doing? So we just, instead of this XYZ, right, we want to say dest.radians equals something from value.direction, and I can just multiply it because I set up the directions to be in order of 90 degrees to the enum. So you could just multiply it because that's a thing that you do if you're smart. But let's see if we have an abstraction for that. Let's just go. Where is spawn river particles? Oh, we're looking in the shaders. One thing I wish I had about this was just a couple buttons that I could assign these search terms to and just click the button and do it. So it would probably be next to this. So get direction vector. Like what? I guess we didn't want to call sine and cosine here. This is a really stupid function. Get theta target from direction. Okay. Yeah, we didn't even multiply it here, dude. And I guess it's like just because we wanted to do stuff. But you'll notice east is 0, north is 90, west is 180. Okay, this is also like not in radians. So here's what we're going to do. It's going to be value dot direction times cast, or no, time just times 1/4 turn. All right. And then there was this other one we searched past here where just going to put that. And honestly, we don't even need to do this -1 trick, because by doing this, we freed up like another slot. So we could just have the whole mask be in a different value. All right. I probably made a mistake in the shaders or something, and our system is stupid right now. It'll crash you if you make a mistake in a compute shader, which is asinine, but I just haven't had time to fix it. Okay, so vec3 to vec4, line 70, vec3 result. Why are we oh, maybe we are using it. Let's just say that was a stupid search and replace. So we're just going to do that. So sample flow. So flow sample. Oh yeah, we're using it right here. Remember when I said I swear we do that? Flow T and then flow. Whoops. Flow T. Maybe we use flow sample.w. Flow sample. Holes have flow sample.w is -1. We handle this. See, this is when you write a frickin' comment, guys. This is what comments are for. They're not for like you have a variable called size and the comment says size. Right? That's experienced programmers know what I'm talking about. Have I read The Turns Are Better Than Radian's article? I mean, not really. I know the basic idea. I just have so many problems that's so far down the list of anything I care about right now. Like after this game ships, I would think about stuff like that. All right, so oh, did I not fix the actual thing? Huh? Wait, what is this going on? Okay, so now this is what I was saying about this language not being that good. We're getting an HLSL error because we're compiling to HLSL and stuff, and you don't want that because it's not detecting the error in the main code. So why are we getting this though? Because I saved the file. Oh, it's vec4 on the right here. See, we should be doing a frickin' type check right there or something, and we're not. So that's the extent to which I would say this shading language. This is not the main programming language. This is a whole other programming language that we did. Yeah. I++ increment I by 1. That is exactly correct. Okay. So you'll notice the little particles are going the wrong way now, which makes me sad. But, oh, but they're always going the wrong way by 90 degrees. So I guess my multiply was wrong. I'm just going to put a shitload of parentheses just because when there's bugs, I get paranoid about everything. Oh, right, because none is 0. Right? Okay, east is 1, guys. So, yeah, there's that. It's just, if it's none, I don't want to... Yeah, okay. So that's great. Um, so now what that means is we can fix the following problem. I will show you the problem that we will now fix. So because we changed this system to go from like a per ocean rendering of all this to like a global rendering, there's only one global z value. So like if I move this one way down, like I just did, the particles are all in the same plane. The particles did not follow that ocean, right? And the reason is because it's using this one. So if we move this one and save it, actually, I don't know. Maybe they're always at 0 right now. Oh yeah, I think, oh yeah, we put a little hack code that says they're always at 0 because we didn't have a way to deal with this. So now we don't have to do that. So let's find where was it? It might have been in a different file. No check-ins. Beam simulations. Why is it in beam simulations? Because that was a file. Yeah. So here we're always setting it to go from -1 to 0 is where the particles live. And now we don't want to do that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to remove ocean Z0 and Z1 completely. Let's see if anyone else is trying to use those. Oh, we're using them for the particle source. This is kind of a problem. We'll put a no check in here. We're just going to, this is like for culling or something, but, you know, put reasonable values here or don't do culling on these particles, which makes sense now because there's only one. So before there used to be a bunch of these potentially, and so you wanted a visibility cull, but now there's one particle system. Actually, yeah, there's one particle system and it's always in front of the camera. So like it doesn't even make sense to visibility cull it. So there's a flag on the, actually, let's just do this. You know what? Here. We're going to do this. We're going to remove code, right? And here, front of the camera all the time, so don't. Visibility, cull it. I hope do not cull is the name of that flag. Dude, these E-cores are driving me nuts. All right. Is this particle system used for anything else? It's literally just for water right now. For environmental particles, we have a more fully featured and versatile particle system where you can put particles in places and all that. So again, on the cool looking Castle Siege level with all the smoke and stuff, like all that is particle systems, right? Let's go look at that again. Anyway, actually, before we go look at that, so yeah, we're not visibility culling these particles, and that's great. Okay. So, like if we go here and we load this level, and we turn on particle source handles, you'll see that like, you know, that those are generating all these things, right? So that's these little particles, these boxes. So We draw this big ass thing if it's like a point source for particles, but we draw these boxes if they're like a volume source, right? So, you know, this is like what people use for other things. Let's grab some smoke. That's going to be the fire? Where's the smoke coming from? Because there's like a volumetric fog effect being used, but then there's also that's volumetric fog, which is a different entity type. But maybe it all is actually. Yeah, maybe it all is. Anyway, so you know, but this is the other particle system, the general one. The thing we're doing is literally just a different thing. And why are we doing that? Because sometimes that's what you do in video games. I explained why in the last stream last night, why this is a different system. It's for efficiency reasons. Yeah. Gotta nerf the graphics so the rest of the game doesn't look worse. I know, man. All right. So, we're going to get rid of all this code. I'm leaving it here for a little bit, just in case. Okay, does anyone else use Ocean Z0? No. The shader probably does, right? Oh, ocean interior particles. Yeah, so here we're using that. And instead of that, when we sample the flow buffer, we're going to put the Z in the Z coordinate, right? Okay. So now when we say ocean Z0, we're going to do the following. We're going to say it's actually Z1 is sort of the flow sample. And ocean Z0 is going to be ocean Z1 minus 1 for right now. And if we want to have more, you know, we could do some other stuff. If we want deeper particle volumes or something, but almost every ocean in the game is 1 deep for gameplay reasons. Yeah, this is 1 by definition right here. We're dividing by 1. It's great. Okay. I probably missed something. We'll just find out. So the CPU code is compiled now successfully. That doesn't mean it's right, but it compiled. Flow updater, Z coordinate doesn't... Okay, well, that's a different issue. All right. Well... Oh, you know, we're not actually setting that Z value ever. So let's go do that. It's 0 right now still. So when we do this, dest.z is ocean position Z. All right. We'll use visual position in case you're dragging it in the editor and it's between squares. Position is like quantized and visual position is not. Was that a good idea in this game? Probably position should have been the unquantized one. Sorry. Okay, so we need to look at all of these. Okay, the flow updaters are just modifying, but in all the cases when we add, we need to check probably. Maybe. Yeah. All right. See how that goes. How's it going, everybody? Do I still follow or like Counter-Strike? Not super much. Okay. So this is weird. Our particle flow direction, for some reason, we messed it up. It's changed. But you'll notice the non-river particles are at the correct Z values for each ocean, right? So we correctly did that. My question is, what's going on there? And I'm a little bit scared because it could be like a deep technical problem with the shader compiler. Or it could be that I did something dumb, right? But like we kind of technically mostly solved the problem we were just looking to solve. I bet it's just in the simulate code. When I changed the ocean, let's just look. So we could sort of have some fun and try to live edit these particles. The problem is we'll crash the game if we make a mistake, which is horrible. Like, this is just what happens when you let other people work on your stuff. For the whole history of this engine, it was good about that. Like, you could just have fun and edit shaders, and you would just get like a red surface if it didn't. And then at some point, somebody broke that, and I didn't notice because I wasn't working on shaders for a couple of years. And then I go back and I'm like, what is happening? And I don't know who broke it. I don't know when. It's probably not very hard to fix. But again, I ration my effort very carefully, so I just haven't gone and tried to fix it. So hopefully we don't make a mistake. But anyway, so what's happening in this shader is we are picking between two particle types in a closed form way that doesn't have any if statements. So like we sample the ocean flow buffer, that's what all that flow T was, and then we use flow T to make this interpolant value that's basically just like a hard 0 or 1 based on whether we spawn a particle inside the river or not. And then we use that to look in some tables. We generate some factors, and then we use that to look in some tables. So right now we have speed, and that's going to get multiplied by a direction. So flow direction is what's going on. And we have a flow direction non-flow and a flow direction flow sample. Oh, we're still using flow sample.xyz. Oh, right. Because remember, I originally... Okay. This is... Hang on. See? Sample flow buffer. It's not a scary problem, guys. So we just want XY. So because there's a Z value now that's not 0, this bug was already there. We want to use, okay, flow sample.xyz. We actually want vec3 flow sample.xy, 0. All right, ta-da, it's fixed. How great is that? Don't you wish the people making your favorite video game fixed bugs that fast? It's still ugly, but you know, that's, you get it working and then you make it look good, right? Okay, so we have all the particles are in two different planes now and whatnot. So I'm just kind of curious if that fixes the overworld problem. It may not. Like, often there's more than one problem. So even if you fix one, there's like another one causing things not to work. But we could see what it looks like. Yeah, it didn't fix it. So you kind of don't see those particles at all here. And that's fine. I mean, it's not fine. We're going to have to fix it. But our main goal was to do this structural change and complete it. And then we'll debug it in complicated cases like this one. Like, the thing here is there's, you know, multiple existence planes and whatever. And we might be getting confused by that. There's all sorts of things. Let's try on a, let's try on a level that has one plane, but is bigger and more complicated, and we'll see if that works. So y'all may know this level. This probably runs slow because it's got a lot of entities, and we're running a very slow debug build right now. That's not too bad. So I am not seeing those particles here either. So this would be, no, I am actually. I'm seeing the teeny particles in the ocean. So like down here, see those? Those are the right particles that we're talking about. What I'm not seeing, oh wait, I am seeing them. Okay, they're just hard to see given these settings. They're there. It's because the camera is directly over and this color is kind of masking the particle color, but they're there. See that? And they end right here because we're not paying attention to free cam. These are all generated based on the gameplay camera, which is focused around the player. So what'll happen is, I'll just cheat for a minute and go over here. What'll happen is, yeah, you see the particles here now. So that's all working, which is great. So it's just something about the overworld is confusing it. Now, if you want to see something amusing, those of you who don't know how this game works. So, right, this is a port of a puzzle script game. So, how do we... Here we go. It's weird how you have to go through so many links just to get this. So this is the original game, right? And in the original game, you go here and you push stuff and you make things go like that, right? It's kind of mind-blowing where we are today. All right, so that's the original game. And, whoops, I just, for some reason, the hard reset is taking a lot of time. All right, so this is the port, right? We're still working on it. Obviously, the rivers are rectangles just like the original game, but we're working on that. All right. Boop. Boop. Oh, we're chugging there. All right. So, you know, progress. Easter egg, turn on original graphics. No, that would be too much extra work actually to make that work. The turn on original graphics Easter egg will open up a web browser to the original game. But anyway, so that's where we got it. All right. Yeah, the rivers are still ugly, but you know, we're getting there, man. We're getting there. So I gotta still fix some overworld stuff. But really, we just want to fix no check-ins so we can take the W. Let's see if we can do that right now. So first, we could probably delete this code. Yep. Anytime you can delete that much code, it's great. Okay, that's that no check-in. So we just have water rendering. So again, the no check-in, sometimes people are confused by this. When we do something very sloppy, just to get to, so, when you're trying to do something involved or difficult or that has many steps, you don't want to get a flat tire on the way because you ran into some issue. And so often I just prune the tree of what you would have to go do by doing something really crappy and putting a no check in there. Or just like, oh, I'm confused about this issue about whether this is the right thing to do. I'm not going to worry about it yet. I'm going to allow myself to continue thinking about the core problem, and I'm just going to tag this with a no check-in. If we try to check this in, it'll get refused, right? So this is a very good software engineering technique that I think I made up. I don't know. I don't think we got it from anywhere. Let's not. Okay, so if we actually do it on all the files, it'll take too long. But if I go to source and I try to check things in, and I say checking in, it'll refuse it. Oh, well, okay. So somebody else was working on the game. That's why it refused it there. But now if I try to check in, it'll just say, like, look, we're rejecting because you have the string no check-in in your file. You're not allowed to have this string anywhere in any of your source files. And so you use that as a tool, like to make sure you don't forget before you check this in to address this issue. That's what these are. It is a very cool feature. It's like, it's one of our best pieces of technology, actually, as far as I'm concerned. All right. So what was this even about? Do we need to do this now? This was about the river tile thing. So here's what I'm going to do. I don't think these active river tiles need to be stored per ocean either. And so we're going to do a separate refactor where we do that. So I'm going to do incomplete store active river tiles globally and get rid of all the conversion to world space and the reference of individual ocean map. Here we don't need that stuff at all for the current system. All right, so I'm going to put that in my to-do list, which I think is still source control conflicting. Yeah, great. I did the valve stuff. I did that. Like, why? All right. We're going to have to prune the to-do list later because it's got duplicate things and whatever. But, okay. We did that. Oh, we can do this as a fun thing. Okay, so that's just reminding myself to do that. The comment is also here. All right. So we've got 3 no check-ins in this file. Don't do the world space thing twice, or maybe it's fine. Oh, in terms of get world index. So we're getting the ocean value. Oh, right. So the thing is, we're doing this for active river tiles, and that here we're doing the same conversion from the space of an individual ocean entity to world space. This is going to go away when we do our other thing, because right now these are stored on the ocean, so we have to map it. When these are stored globally, their position will be trivial to compute. So the thing that no check-in is about, and the reason why I said maybe it's fine, is because maybe this would self-resolve. We're calling get world index twice, and that's just doing some math that you would rather not do if you don't have to, and we won't once we do that other change. So we're just going to delete that no check-in. And this one's old. We're not doing dirty flags on every tile anymore. We did simplify that to ocean map only. So, okay, so this is the last one. Okay. This is the one that I inserted like 45 minutes ago or whatever. And I was like, why are the buffers not initialized? So I would rather make sure that the buffers are initialized. Let's just say, actually, I think what happens is, see, if we have flow updaters, we should have buffers. Let's just say the following thing for now, and we'll set a breakpoint here. We're going to say we're going to log an error there. We're going to say if this, we're going to log an error here, because you don't want like any kind of code like this that's like, oh, sometimes we have a bug where our index is out of range because something is wrong somewhere, so we're just going to clamp it. That's like a very low quality software thing to do. And like most programs do that, and those programmers should be fired, right? Like if this is happening, we should understand why, and we should fix the source of the problem. But in the meantime, we also don't want to crash the game. And so we're going to log errors if these happen, and then we're going to just bail, right? Or clamp in this case. We're going to log an error, and we're going to clamp world index between 0 and buffers.flow data.count -1. That way, if a content person is working on a level and this happens, we get an email about it, but they won't crash, right? Okay. So log error, attempt to modify flow data for this entity, but buffers.flow data is empty. And this is probably going to go off like as soon as we run the program, which is why we're going to put a breakpoint there. Because this was the reason why we put this. Now, it might not happen now because we restructured some stuff, but world index, let's just say in this is a long function name, but we're going to do it in, oh, this says compute flows up here. Let's change that because we moved it. It's like, I kind of want a hacky thing to get the function name. We could probably, I believe we could meta program that right now. It's just, I don't know if I want to fire that off 17 run directives in every function. So I don't know. We'll see. In here, world index, whatever is out of range, buffers.flow data.count is this. So for this flow updater, so flow world index buffers flow boofers. The boofers. All right. So world index, I hope somebody saw that. Okay. Hey, the compiler actually ran at an okay speed that time for some reason. It's learning. The computer is learning to not use the European cores. All right. Here we go. Wait, we got an ABC. Oh, okay. We're not returning in this case, I think. Oops, we should have. But our error message fired. So here we should just return, right? Or, yeah, because there's not going to be anything that we could do. So the question is, why is this happening? Is now the actual bug. So I think if we recompile this, we'll just run, right? And a lot of programmers would be like, okay, we're done. We'll just, that happens for the first frame or something, and we don't understand why. And it just is what it is. And you don't want that. You want to fix the problem. Okay, so it works now. This looks ugly to have the oceans in the wrong places and all this. So let's like, now that it works, dude, I don't know what's going on with the ocean shader, tone mapping, etc. We should just clear the screen to not black so that the tone mapper doesn't freak out. And like we don't have this problem in actual levels because you tend to have a sky entity filling the background and stuff. But okay, there, we're back to a thing that makes sense there. But yeah, attempt to modify flow data for flow updater 102384. But buffers.flow data is empty. So we want to fix that. But it only happens once and then we're fine. So let's just see without running the debugger if we can figure it out. So this is per frame modify, right? That's in this update river tile flow function, which we have some other per frame thing. Yeah, this is probably getting called before our other per frame thing, right? So per frame update ocean flow buffers, right? So these flow updaters are probably happening a frame late. Let's just do this because I don't think we need two things here. I think now the problem is this init ocean thing. If we move that to somewhere else, it might be causing a problem, right? Hey, wait, we were already calling this function. So we had two calls to it. Oops. All right, so this is probably being called from simulate, right? Update river tile flow, yeah. And we're just going to get rid of that. These no check-ins in this case are like, I think I want to delete this code, but just in case, so that we don't have to go do a source control diff or whatever, we'll just leave the code in for a little bit in case we actually want it back, right? That's what those are. So the thing that makes implicit type definition work better is that the type system of the programming language is designed so that it's, if you do something that you didn't want to do, that it's an error, right? And then you're never really confused about what the types of things are. The thing that introduces the confusion is when there's all sorts of implicit conversion and then like, oh, this thing wasn't quite the type that I expected it to be. And then this conversion was being invoked here that I didn't understand was happening. And that's what makes that not work. But if you have a language that's very clear about that, then it's okay to just have implicit types all over the place. Okay, what were we even doing? We're running. Oh, we wanted to make sure that error doesn't happen. And I don't see it now, but we're going to run again and put a breakpoint there to make sure it's not happening for sure. So we're going to put a breakpoint here, and we're going to put a breakpoint here. And you see, that was easy to fix, but like literally most programmers will not fix that bug once they just return on the first frame or something. And then that kind of bad, lame, uncertain code just compounds day after day for the entire lifetime of a project. And it's the difference between something understandable and nice and something that's just horrible and sucky and that everyone's afraid of, right? So you actually got to fix those. And like, it didn't even take that long. And, you know, that's the difference between, you know, a senior program. Yeah, most senior programmers even wouldn't fix that bug these days because that's how low we've fallen. Yeah. Anyway, we did it. We have the moral superiority because we did it. Do you think that's because of other seniors rushing juniors for deadline reasons? No. No, I don't. I think that's an excuse. Because here's the thing. most programmers only work at like 15% efficiency anyway. So you can't say I needed to do that to hit the deadline because 85% of your capacity is unused because you're fucking on Instagram all day or whatever the fuck, right? So just don't even, I just don't want to hear those excuses at all. Or because you're like, you're on a group chat on Slack about what editor extension to use and whether you should switch to Visual Studio Code. Just like if you've said anything like that in the past week, probably most of your productive capacity is wasted and you need to recalibrate. You're older, you'd fix it. Yeah, well, that's good for sure. If you would fix that bug, you are on the right side. Um, but in my experience, even like, dude, I've had programmers who I paid over $200,000 a year who wouldn't have fixed that bug and or wouldn't have hardly done any work at all and then gotten fired after 8 months of me being fed up. So I've just seen a lot at this point. I'm very sim. Now there are programmers who are great and are doing a good job, right? So this is not me dissing people generally or with an overbroad brush. There are good programmers. We've got good programmers working with us. It's great, but it's just I've also seen the opposite, and there's no excuse for it. And it's really weird because I try to be pro soft. Like anyone who works at my company should know how pro software quality I am. I talk about it all the time, and yet people still do that. And it's like at some point, it's like, I'm sorry, you can't work here if you do that. you know, like it's just not acceptable. All right. Anyway, so I believe that was our last no check-ins because we're going to delete this. We're going to delete this. I believe we are no check-in. Oh, no. No. Wait, I didn't save the file. All right. So that is the goal for now. Now we have a stretch goal that I'm actually going to go about my day. So the stream's going to end soon. But we have a stretch goal now that I could make that other array of stuff global and get rid of some more math. So we're going to do that as well later. Maybe on a stream. Because maybe I want to do some compiler stuff for a little bit today. But, okay. Change ocean particles to so that individual particle sources are not created per ocean map. Instead, there's just one and it follows the global ocean particle window around. Okay, so that's what happens. And just double checking all these things. Cool. You know what? Before we end the stream, I have one other thing on my to-do list, which is all this like radial force stuff. I think we can just delete. Let's just try deleting this because I think it's gone from the shaders. I just like deleting code. The reason the radial force stuff is going away is that was an old limited way of doing water disturbances, and part of what we're doing now is a newer, much more flexible way of doing it, right? So anything that had, okay, that's an entity. Anything that has entities we're going to save for later because those are like saved on disk and stuff, but we can just deprecate the entity. We could move it certainly into another file. There's a mask that is two separate entity types. Like why? All right. So we could like go through the game and delete all those entities from all save files, and then we can delete the entity type from the system. But if you don't do that, if you delete the data definition of the entity, but you have some on disk, the game will get confused when it tries to load them, and nobody will be happy. Actually, deleting this is also a thing. We're not going to do both at the same time. Populate radial forces and river tiles. I don't know what the river tiles thing is. This surface patch stuff might still be in use, so we're just going to delete, whoops. We're just going to delete the radial force part. Okay. Now, see this init-ocean map thing here, or init-ocean? You'll notice when we were editing, we moved also a different call to init-ocean. And this is one of these low-quality programming things that I was talking about. It's like we're not in control of the order of operations. We're not sure that the ocean entities are initialized, so we're going to initialize them in places where we ran into a bug where they weren't initialized, right? And like, that's terrible. You should just, like, your system should do things in the right order, and you should know the state of things, right? Otherwise, this is just part of the, this becomes harder and harder to deal with over time as there's less, you know. All right. Water radial forces gone. So the ocean params has a member called radial forces. I already searched the shaders. We could search again, but I'm pretty sure they're not used in the shaders. All right, so render frame. See, all my buffers aren't in memory because Microsoft decided to reboot my computer a day ago. So water radial forces gone. Radial forces count gone. Do I have to worry about some weird alignment thing here? I hope not. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's probably fine. Okay, shader globals. Is that here? Where is shader global? It's just in here. Shader globals, radial forces gone. There might be some other things that we should be deleting. Okay, this populate radial forces, we left that function because of the river tiles part, which we probably don't need, but yeah. Now the European cores are taking forever to do anything. Hey, all right. So now, hopefully we didn't break stuff. Okay. So great. So we can go back to our to-do list. We deleted that code. So let's just say remove radial forces entities. Delete, what was the name of this function? This populate river tiles. Populate radial forces, but with a question mark. We're not sure if that actually does something we still need. I don't think it does. What else? Okay, delete surface patch, because I think that was just being used by these old data structures. Remove is new ocean. Okay. Scrub files for, okay, ocean flow info, dinit oceans, populating, like a lot of this code can just get cleaned up, but yeah, a lot of this is the new code. This is all stuff that I wrote. So like current manager, what the fuck is that for? Who did that? And oh my God. Like, can we actually compile without that now? Because we already deleted the stinky code. Like, this is unforgivable because somebody sets a global variable to whatever the entity manager is and doesn't name the variable after who's using it and calls into a bunch of code and doesn't even know that the current entity manager is already stored in the context in a thread safe way. So you didn't even have to do that. Like, all of those are very bad. All right. Like current manager? Are you kidding me? All right. So now we're going to take the W on that. We're just going to say delete some water radial force stuff, more to come. Yeah, guys, don't like diss streamers or programmers here. It's just not like, this is not a gossip channel, all right? This is a channel about working hard to make good things, all right? And if other people are making things and they're not actively harmful, like if they're not killing people or poisoning people, we probably shouldn't talk about it here if it's negative, because you're just, you're just dissing their thing. You shouldn't, it's just not productive to do that, right? Regardless of whether you should do it or not, it's not productive. Now, if you want to complain about negative aspects of technical things, such as APIs or algorithms or programming languages or whatever, that is a thing that a good engineer would do. However, the problem is people always want to gossip and stuff. And so that rapidly turns into like stupid programming language wars and bike shedding and whatever. And so you just got to be ever vigilant that what goes through your mind is of high quality. And nobody is perfect at that. I certainly am not perfect at that, but we want to try. All right. We're going to delete a little more code before I go off into the world and have lunch and stuff. So before I go, we'll try to do isNewOcean, but which was a hack function. I'll show you what this is. This is just really gross. It's like looking at the ocean entity and it's like, hey, does it use materials? And is one of them called Ocean D? Because that's the new ocean shader. And the reason this was done is fine. Like when you're experimenting and doing new shaders, you don't want to mess up the work of people who have already done stuff on the game. So it was fine for this function to exist, but we're past the point where it should exist, and you don't want to leave this in your game. And so if anything, the problem here, so I added this like a day or two ago. If you ever make a function like this, you should do something like this, okay? And it's kind of unforgivable not to do this, right? You need to do this. This is terrible code that is just here for a short period of time to help us experiment with shaders in an isolated way that doesn't disturb other people's work. It should be removed well before shipping. If you write code like this and it doesn't have a comment like this, you're not doing a good job. I don't care who you are, right? Okay. I'm going to get a glass of water. I'll be back in a second. Are there any questions about what we've been programming today? Technical questions. Are there any questions? Back in a second. Time's up. I hope you finished typing your question. To don't disturb other people's work, you have Git. No, because the whole point of checking this in is so someone on the art team can go experiment with setting parameters on that, and that you have some levels checked into the game that use the new ocean, dude. What is the best way to load shaders for multiple graphics APIs? I mean, that's a really stupid problem to have, but we have it. because our industry sucks. In the old days, like in the 1960s and 70s, you had programming languages like Fortran and C that would just compile to different CPUs. But for some reason, when we changed the letter C to G and said, oh, this is a GPU, not a CPU, oh, it's totally different. So you just can't run the same programming language on different GPUs. And you know what? Even if you have the same GPU but two different operating systems like Windows or Mac, you also can't use the same programming language. It's like so idiotic, it's beyond insane, right? And it's just the fact that engineers of today are mediocre compared to engineers of the past. And then also, we're not in control in a way because engineers are individual. The ones that aren't mediocre are like, because if you are not mediocre, you should be enraged by this because it's so obviously wrong, right? And then the ones that aren't mediocre are disempowered by the size and complexity of the code base that we're saddled with. They're like, yeah, obviously you should have one thing that works everywhere, but I can't do that because the NVIDIA drivers compile your shader and they're managed by these other people and whatever. And it's like, yes, that's all true, but like it's completely unacceptable and stupid, right? So you have to deal with this problem in some way. The way that we did it is stupid. We have our own shading language that's basically kind of GLSL, but that has other stuff in it and also gets around the really stupid idiocy from GLSL that you couldn't have vertex and pixel shaders in the same file. I guess maybe that's been fixed by an extension since I don't even know. Like there's just all kinds of idiocy, right? So it's a mess. What I would have recommended, so back in the Witness, for example, and for Braid Anniversary Edition, we used a shader cross compiler. I forget which one. We changed our mind at various times, but there's a couple different ones. I think one of them Ryan Gordon worked on for a bit. And for this game, the reason we didn't do that, I don't know. The reason might have just been that we wanted to try something different due to the problems we ran into before. The reason might have also been that like we're doing some introspection where we output data structures and maybe we felt like there was some way to do that. But honestly, this programming language that we made is like not really materially different from any other shader language, and it's just another one. And like that's stupid too, right? But it's completely moronic that there isn't just one shader language. And now we have this problem that like the people on the super low end, you know, the IQ bell curve meme where you have the Jedi on the right and like whatever. The people on the left end of that curve made like the web shading language, whatever it's called. And they were like, oh, we're going to use Rust syntax for all the vector threes because that makes sense somehow. And then now like they're trying to make that the standard thing. And so now we're going to have a horrible shading language that's the standard, right? Like it's so bad. We're in such a bad situation. It's incredible. Okay, that's my answer to that question. Sorry. I've ranted about this before, but it's so bad it deserves to be ranted about literally every day. Thought our shader language is a cross compiler. It is. We're just compiling to whatever the back end language is. We're transpiling, you would say, to GLSL or HLSL. Isn't it funny that those are only one letter different and next to each other in the alphabet? They're like a 1-bit difference, probably. What is G? So A is 65. So G is 71. And H is 72, right? So 71 is 64 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1. 71. And 72 Oh, no, they're more than 1 bit difference, dude, because it's 64 plus 8. Sad. Okay, never mind. It's just a 1 character difference. But isn't it ironic that a 1 character difference like that means you have to use a completely different everything? It's really stupid. It's really stupid. It's just 1 bit flip. I guess it's you XOR by 1111 to get the difference between those numbers, those characters. All right, my monitor just flickered. Why doesn't the industry come together and make standards that interoperate the way programmers need? Is it really? Yeah, it is kind of really stupidity. Like the thing that is stupid is that nobody just looks back at C and says, "Wait a minute, when that language was made, it ran on computers that had like 6-bit integers or didn't have floating point or um like did math in like EBIDIC." Like there's all sorts of weird stuff that used to happen, right? Sorry, not 6-bit integers, 6-bit bytes. There were machines with 6-bit bytes because that was all you needed to store, the alphabet. So there were all these heterogeneous machines, and like C ran on all of them. And yes, if you were going to target a specific one, you might have to have some if-defs, but like that's just how it worked. And now the excuse is like, oh well, GPUs are different. No, they're not. They're like not even that different from each other, and somehow. And the reason you know they're not different is all these languages, GLSL and HLSL and WebGPU and metal shading language, they're basically the same programming language, right? They have minor syntactical differences and different minor inconveniences from each other. They're basically the same programming language, but they're not because we're stupid. Okay, I'm going to stop ranting about this. But the real problem is nobody cares. Like, this has been the situation since the start of GPUs. And in the beginning, you would actually forgive it for having forked like that because all these were like fixed function pipelines in the beginning. And like pipeline manipulation is a very simple thing. And so the programming languages could be simple. And B, isn't that much like traditional programming. And so you're just like, well, it's this very small domain specific language for doing this thing. But now it's like a large part of your program, and it's a full programming language, and there's 9 of them. And one of them is made by Mozilla people who think that putting, vec3s in angle brackets makes your programming language better. So, like, I don't even know what to think about any of this anymore, except that everybody's a bad engineer. Like, it's just obvious. Like, if we were empowered individuals who were smart and really could make computers do things, like, that's the definition of a programmer, right? Is someone who can make a computer do things. If we really could make computers do things, we would fix this because we would just solve the problem. But the computers are bigger now. They're bigger than us, and we can't make them do things. And that's not even an AI alignment problem. That's just like there's a lot of software, and most of it is not controlled by skilled people problem. So it's completely inexcusable, and it just shows how weak programmers are now, honestly. So, like, what are you going to do about it? Angle brackets make GPUs run faster. Yes, it is a well-known fact that angle brackets make GPUs run faster. You don't see angle brackets in WebGPU. Are you kidding? Did they change it? enough people cared about this problem to make slang. Yeah. So like, here's the thing. I haven't looked at slang. I mean, there's been several languages called slang over time as well, which is like why that's a bad name. I haven't looked at it. Maybe it's good, right? But in principle, I believe it's probably an equivalent thing to what this language is, which is just a cross compilation language, which is better than the current situation. Like if that becomes widely adopted and it works well, then great. That's less idiotic. But what's super idiotic, all we're doing is like you give this thing to the driver and the driver just compiles it into a completely other language anyway. So like the language that's incompatible on every operating system and driver is like, it's even just a fake intermediate language anyway. That's why this is all so stupid. And it just means that you can't write a program that runs on different computers because there's a fake intermediate language that's so disposable, like it doesn't make it to the end of the API call. Like, what is going on? Yeah, if we can standardize something. So again, I don't know what slang looks like, but if it came from NVIDIA, it's probably better than WebGPU, right? All right. Anyway, so we're just going to return true here and make sure that things still work, and we're going to get a warning. Whoops, I didn't recompile. We're going to get a warning on that once the European cores can start doing things. Yeah, statements in block after return. That's great. And we're just going to make sure that things work on a bunch of levels. And then I'm going to delete the function and all sites that call the function. Because you don't just want to have a vestigial code in there that just returns. That's terrible. All right, this works. Ugly level works. This works. That works. And that works. So we're going to delete the function. And is new ocean. All right. So it's always true. So not true is false. This is where you make a mistake, right? Is like you do the wrong thing when it's time to delete it. Is new ocean. All right, water shore. If is new ocean. Here, this is always true, right? So we do that. This is false. So we just don't do that. All right, so why do we have stuff in save? Okay, that's commented out. Great. All things water comments need to be deleted with extreme prejudice. All right, and that's commented out. So that, yeah. Okay. By the way, that was a long rant, but whenever I rant, the viewer count goes up, and when I program, the viewer count goes down. So, like, if you guys want to know why Prime is so popular, that's why. I mean, but he has, like, positive rants, but, you know, they're basically rants. So... Thought you started some shit. No, I mean, if I didn't want to rant about it, I wouldn't. It's just so stupid, dude. Like, I can't believe how stupid programming is in 2024. And, like, nobody cares because most of the people are young enough to not have ever known a different situation. I think that's the core problem. Okay, so we successfully did that. Let's take the W. We deleted is new ocean. Delete is new ocean. And then while we're waiting for that, does surface patch get used? Let's look in water rendering. Surface patch. It's not used in that file. Surface patch. It is literally not used anymore. All right, so we delete this. Boom, but let's not save it yet because we're still checking this in. Okay, we're going to delete that. And we'll just do another check-in for it if we compile. And then, what is even set dummy ocean params? That doesn't sound good. Oh, this populate radial forces and river tiles. Reset ocean fill drain state. Let's get rid of that. Oh, surface patch. Patch min. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Let's make sure that's not being used in the shaders anymore. Maybe it is. Maybe we got to put it back. That's why you do these things incrementally instead of like a ton of them at once, right? Patch min. Oh, it's in. It's patch space pause. So most of these are not used, but we're using Ocean D still. So patch space pause. Patch space pause. Patch space UV. Okay, this is being used for the shore map. Now the thing is, these data structures are probably kind of redundant, but okay, we're using them right now. Whoops, that's the new ocean change. Remove surface patch if we decide that Ocean D does not need this as a distinct variable type. It just seems kind of dumb. Now here's the problem. Why is there a fucking global variable here called surface patch, by the way? Like, does that even work? Does anyone set that? So here nobody sets it. And all this code is commented out. Here, we're sending it to the shader. All right, this is probably where, all right. Here's where we're setting it. It's kind of obfuscated. Compute patches WS, which I assume is world space. You shouldn't ever do that unless that's a consistent abbreviation that everybody across the whole project understands. All right. I mean, what even is this? Guys, come on. So what even is this for? Why? I'm going to not try to delete this now, but I just want to understand what this is for. I mean, this is essentially the same thing that we're doing, but it's more code that's more complicated. This is the same thing we're already doing because, like I said, all this particle stuff we just did is about having a rectangle follow you around. So we should probably use that same rectangle because I think this is being used for the shore map, right? Like, what the hell is all... Why is it so much code? Like, it looks like maybe it's like find every ocean map that is within range and then expand the patch to include all of them. But like, even if you were going to do that, it should be less code than this, right? Yeah, it's trying to do a thing with a big margin around it. I don't think most of this makes sense. However, this will come up when we do the shore match stuff. So what a shore map revision. So I'm going to say when we revise the shore maps, we will probably get rid of this. It's a lot of complicated code that does not totally make sense. We could just use the same window that is used for the same 2D window, ocean particles, and if we don't want to re-render the shore map each frame, we can just expand those coordinates to be big enough that they only change when we go between screens. But that can be very simple and not crazy like the code below. All right, so that's, we're just increasing our understanding of what's going on. Okay, populate. Do we still compile, by the way? How many programmers work on the game currently? Not very many. It's a lean year in the games industry. We have 2 people working full-time and another person contributing part-time currently. Okay, so populate radial forces. Forces in river tiles. All right, so, oh, that's setting this patch variable. Why are we iterating over all the oceans to do that? Okay. What? Oh, because it's on the material. Why is it on? Okay. Okay. Here's an example. This is a value on the material on the ocean map. So we have to do all this code that's janky to look up the material, and we have a hash table for some reason. Why do we even have that? Like, I mean, I kind of get it, but there's not going to be that many materials, whatever. Why is this on the parameter or on the material? Like, it's just we're just using it in the ocean shader. If this is just a variable on the ocean shader that you send to the ocean shader when you use it, you don't have to do any of this. I wish I could just clip that rant and put it in a comment right here, but I can't, so now I have to type a comment. None of this code should exist. Surface patch should just be a parameter to the ocean D shader that gets uploaded with those other parameters. Then we don't have to map to oceans or anything. What is the deal with airplane food? Come on, guys. Right, so what is today? I'm going to date this comment. Sometimes I do that when I'm angry. It's Friday the 13th? Wow, okay. Great. Populate. We're just going to call this what it actually does now. So there's multiple code rot things happening here. One of the things is just none of this should be happening at all. And it's doing janky data structure navigation and what none of this needs to happen. But secondly, so I'm going to put that in my to-do list, by the way. None of this should be happening, but also it's named the wrong thing because it's evolved over time. This should all this does now is say, I mean, it's just set surface patch values, right? That's all it's doing. Useless function to set surface path values. This function should be deleted. That's what we're going to call it. Like, you should document your code with names that tell you what the functions do. All right, render frame is where this is called. So we're going to call useless function to set surface path, patch values, not path, patch values. This function should be deleted. All right, so and I'm just going to put on my to-do list, remove this. And then once we do that, we can delete this surface patch data structure. Probably. I mean, we might keep the struct, but I don't know why you would do that. You just have two vector 2s that you set. There's already a giant struct that we set that has ocean parameters. So just put it on there. Why is it on the material? That's insane. It's insane. Okay. I mean, it's not insane. It's just like, it's the kind of confusing code that happens. I'm just frustrated, so I'm calling it insane. It's the kind of thing that happens when people aren't thinking very clearly about what is the best way to do things, and they just kind of do something and it works, right? That's what that is. Seems like AI code, no. No. If I made a lot of shorts out of rants. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a YouTuber, though. Those guys can have their YouTube empire. That I'm happy with for them. And yeah. Okay. So this is a little bit of a bigger job. We might do a stream tonight where we do these. It's, you know, I've been going for a couple hours, 3 hours going on, and I could go get lunch or something. Okay, this has turned into this. So this is no longer okay, this current manager. Oh, we did that. We did current manager. So I'm pretty happy with this. Okay, so basically we want to do some more code cleanup, not even that much more. And then the next steps after that is making it look better, which will be great. Okay, so let's take the W on that. We'll make sure we can compile. Dude, we got to turn off the European cores. What? Okay, so usually, did I not? Oh, I probably didn't save it after inserting the C in the name. Dude, the European cores, what is happening? All right, yeah. So we're just going to make sure we still run. And then we're going to go look at the nice looking level again, just to remind ourselves that not everything is the ugly programmer art level. Yeah, that's working. And And our nice looking levels are working. And so that's great. That's great. We haven't broken this. This probably doesn't have an ocean entity, so it's not that surprising. But you just want to check. It's just a sanity check. I'll also run, because we changed a lot of code, I'm going to run a full game test while I go out to lunch and stuff to see if I crashed anything in an obscure level somewhere. But probably not. Yeah. Any questions as we get ready to sign off? Any questions about what we did there? Making it look better is just for the particles or the whole water shader? Well, probably for the particles right now. Somebody else is working on the shader proper, like what are all the wave shapes and reflectance and all that. I am not working on those things. I am working on many other things. So those particles that you saw that we were making be in the right place and all that, they're still hard-coded to be like little dots, right? And so we want to be able to control the density of how many particles are there on a particular ocean. I guess that should be a per level thing. We want to control like mapping little textures on them so that they look good. We want to match them to the river speed. Right now we have these ripples and the color particles, and they're totally different. And that's maybe not good, right? Because you want them to match up, or at least be able to match them up. So just a lot of things like that. I am the part-time guy, question mark? No. I work more than almost anybody in the games industry, okay? Like, that's just how that is. The fires are all the software waste. No questions? Technical questions? Well, besides that one, the particle one. Seem to already have a good list of stuff to do. Do you keep that in memory? You know, sometimes I write to-do lists in files and stuff, but often I use them in the short term, and then sometimes things pile up and I just end up de facto ignoring the rest of the to-do list because something else comes up or whatever. And so to-do lists are like, I don't take them that seriously, but we just used one, you know, for a little bit today where we put down 6 or 7 items and deleted some of them, and I use them like that. But like I work on so many things, right? I work on the compiler, I work on the game design, I work on the technical part of the game. So the to-do lists get big under those conditions, and I don't let them control what I should be thinking about. I think that's the important part. If there's something important to think about right now, go do that. It doesn't matter what's on the to-do list. Right? That's all. Is there some kind of story? There is some kind of story. It needs to be fleshed out before we ship the game. Do you consider doing code reviews? You know, I didn't in the past. Like, so here's the thing. We didn't used to do code reviews ever, and my policy was just to trust programmers. I think that worked better back when people worked in an office with each other. I think that works less well remotely because just communication is less. But also, I've been disappointed the whole time. Again, because I'm very pro software quality and being smart about software and doing like the right things. And I just expect people to pick that up if they work on our stuff. And that hasn't been happening like nearly to the degree that I would expect. And I think part of that, again, is like people feel overwhelmed, but they feel overwhelmed. I think in most cases of programmers feeling overwhelmed, it's honestly because they don't work that much. Like they only actually work 2 or 3 hours a day, and they spend the rest of the time reading the internet or watching a video or whatever. And so of course, if you're working less than 50% of how much you're supposed to be working, it's going to take a lot longer to like understand situations and get on top of them and know what should be done. I mean, dude, we've had some programmers who worked approximately 2 hours a week in terms of their actual output, and they no longer work at the company. And maybe those people thought they were working hard. I don't know. But if your output is practically zero, I don't think you're working hard. So you're either splashing and not swimming, or you're just not actually working. And the problem with running a company remotely, which is how we are right now, is you don't have information over whether people even appear to be working. So you just have to treat things like what they look like. So if it looks like someone's working 2 hours a week, I have to believe that they're actually working 2 hours a week in terms of like what they sit down and do. Because of course the person trying to fraud you will say they're working 40 hours if they're only working 2 hours. So like, these are just all the stupid problems that we have to deal with. you know? There's high school kids yelling at each other outside. How are glowing particles rendered? I mean, so there's sort of two effects going on here. What you see there, so like that burning tower has just regular particles that are being added with an additive blend into a high dynamic range back buffer, right? So it can go above 0 to 1. That's been standard in video games for like a long time now. And then you have a tone mapping step at the end that does bloom that makes it look like it's glowing a little bit. So it adds some blur to it. So you're seeing that a little bit, not too much. But also, the smoke that's above the fire is like a volumetric effect that is rendered on top and like does some depth-based ray casting and whatnot to do a little bit of like, that's why it's like kind of lit up like that, right? Is because we're doing ray casts through a volume and stuff. I think that's what that effect is. So, and then the art of making games look good has always so far just been about blending different techniques like that to create effects that are nice, right? How do you handle memory allocations? Do you might, like most people, not care mostly and go get new memory per vec or stir? No, no. I mean, well, we so sometimes we'll temporary allocate things. We're very, with the temporary allocator, we're very nonchalant, but that's all stored in linear memory. If you make an entire engine like this, it's just heap allocating everything all over the place, it's going to be slow. So you just shouldn't do that. Sorry, but that's just how it is. It's like the closer side of the smoke is not lit by the fire. Yeah, I mean, so what's actually happening in this scene, and as someone who's trying to direct a game, there's always a question of how picky am I going to be about these things versus whatever. Like, if you look at the scene, right, it's like the smoke is lit on the underside, but by some light source that's down here. So the implication is sort of that there's a lot more fire down here than this. You don't really see that, but it's like what the scene is implying. I think in reality, because this is close, you would expect at least here to see more glow. And that might be something we could just add in by adding another light source. But because these are a bunch of ray casts going through these volumes, it's kind of expensive to add more light sources. So at some point, you don't really want to add more because it slows performance down, right? So that's all. Is the art director of The Witness working on this game? I mean, I was the art director of The Witness for all practical purposes. So, like, definitely the art team made lower level decisions, but I was directing the game from the high level about like what should we do and how should things look and all that. You used to work in a U.S. startup, and there was mandatory to use Zond software like Time Doctor to track your whole activity. Maybe this is what you need. Here's the thing. I've always wanted to stay away from weird spyware that runs on people's machines and make sure they're working. I don't think that's good because you want a trust relationship with the people that you work with, right? You don't want to be like, Black Mirror running their life or whatever. However, I've had that trust relationship fail and get betrayed so many times, and it's cost so much money, like millions of dollars wasted. Like, I just, at some point, yeah, things have to happen differently. I don't think that's the right answer. I think the right answer is actually that you should just have a company where people work in the same place and they see each other all the time and all that, right? The conundrum is there's not really a path to getting back there for a small company like mine because we need to hire people who could do a good job working on game engines and stuff. And there's not that many cities in the world where you could do that. And the cities in the world where you can right now are complete ass, right? Or the ones in the US. So like, I don't want to move back to San Francisco and live in San Francisco every day. I don't want to live in LA every day, although that would be better than San Francisco probably. And so if you're going to start a game company again where you're like everybody's in the office, it needs to be one of those places. And until California gets its act together, which probably will take years at best, I just can't bear to live there because it's humiliating to live in California. Like I won't do it. Like it's intentionally demoralizing and humiliating. So, I'm kind of stuck there. You know. Austin, Texas is okay. Maybe. I mean, I lived in Austin and I didn't like it that much back in the day, but also I'm just not sure we could get engineering talent of the level that we want. And then also, so there's another element which is just it's not the people we have working on the game right now are good. So you don't want to like force those people to move because they have lives. You hired them under the agreement that they could work from home, right? And so there would be a transitionary phase anyway if I did that. And we would need to be at a time where we're hiring a significant number of people again, which we're not right now. Right now, we're in a mode of surviving this very lean year of the game industry to get to the point where we ship this game and have new income from a fresh game, right? So none of this is going to happen anytime soon. But I'm just saying, if I had the choice of install spyware on everybody's machine where the camera is watching them to make sure they're working versus have a place that's chill where everybody goes to work, I think I would pick that second one, right? But it's just sad. It's just sad that it doesn't seem to work very well. And it's weird because I've talked to people certainly around 2020 or 2021, I would talk to some other game developers and they're like, we're working remote and it works great. And like, I kind of don't believe it at this point. Like it's so hard to make it work correctly. Maybe we're just not doing the right things. Maybe we could just do one or two things that we're not doing and it would work better. But I don't I fully understand why Elon Musk has a very hard line about this, right? He's like, especially at like Tesla, he's like, dude, everybody has to come into the office and that's just how it is. And you're fired if you don't do that. And I fully understand why he did that. That is not a controversial thing to me at all. And I think, so a lot of game companies, especially bigger game companies like EA or like Riot or whatever, I think there's still people are mostly out of the office most of the time. And I think those companies especially also are not good at handling that. And I think productivity per worker is very low at those companies. And I think that's why the games are not so good and there aren't very many games. And I think you're going to see revenues for those companies continue to decline until they find a way to fix this, right? Among other things, there's certainly other reasons why revenues are declining right now, but people understand those reasons, so I'm not going to harp on them. Yeah. Aren't those companies using Scrum? Yeah, but all that means is you have a 20-minute meeting in the beginning where everyone shows up and pretends to work, and then they go to Disneyland in the afternoon. So someone says they've been running a 7-person studio remotely for 1.5 years, and you think it's great for hiring, but pretty awful for productivity culture. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that statement matches my experience exactly. We're always looking for new ways to try to improve how we handle remote, right? But it's just really hard. That's all I have to say about it. It's really hard. And some of the things we do are pretty inconvenient. So like we fly everybody across the world or the country to meet up in one place, 4 times a year. And that is expensive and it's annoying for people to have to leave town for a week or 4 days or however long they end up being there. But like, I think things would be going a lot worse if we didn't do that, right? So, like, I don't know. What about VR or AR Office? I don't think that's good enough right now. Should just all stream our work on Twitch. We actually tried that. There was one person on the team who like wanted to start a thing where people were just screen sharing in Discord all day and you could just drop in and see what's on people's screen. I didn't really want to do that because that's a lot like just being monitored all day, right? And here's the thing. I, as a programmer and designer, I kind of want to work random hours during the day. Like I feel, well, I am, objectively speaking, more productive when I have an open schedule, right? But I think like everybody would like that to be true for them, but for a lot of people, if they don't work a fixed schedule, they're not going to work that much. That's just reality. And so I don't know. So maybe we should bring that back as like a softer way that like everyone's just present and people are really working. So I did that for a couple weeks and this other dude did it for a couple weeks, but like most people, I didn't want to like force people to do it and most people didn't want to do it. And maybe most people didn't want to do it because they had like Instagram up on their screen or like porn or I don't even know, right? So, or just their personal email. So maybe we should do that. I don't know. But we tried that as an experiment and it didn't really catch on. But it was kind of cool that you could just sort of click, like that part worked really well. You could have a bunch of people screen sharing into Discord and you could just click on one and see relatively rapidly what they were actually doing. It was kind of neat. Yeah, I mean, it's working hours right now. We have over 1,000 viewers. How many of you are programmers for which this is for whom this is a workday? Like, if you want to guess what percentage of those viewers, right? So, I mean, if you're an indie and you just want to see what's going on with other developers and stuff, and you're in control of your own time, then I think that's totally fine, right? But like, if you're really supposed to be programming right now and you're watching this, Okay, also, because in Windows you can't tell what's the foreground window, I just Alt F4'd the Twitch chat because I thought the game was the foreground window. All right, we're reopening chat. All right, we have 1,000 viewers, but it's time for me to be done with the stream for now. You know, I got frustrated with streaming for a while, but I was enjoying this, so maybe we'll do this a couple days a week or something. Like morning streams, I think work better too, because I get less annoyed with chat when I'm less tired, probably. So we'll maybe do some more again. Anyway, so next time we do one, we're gonna do a little more code cleanup, but then we're gonna start adding features to those particles and make them look better. Who should we raid right now? Who should we raid? Forzen, no. Forzen does not need our raid. Is there anyone? Mr. Beast. Aswan Gold. Is there like a programming stream we should raid? Lana. We haven't raided Lana in a long time. All right, we'll do that. What's she doing? Is she live? Yeah, she's doing baking recipes. We can't raid baking recipes. Come on, guys. Is Soding or whatever is not even live. I don't know how you pronounce the weird O.
And welcome to yet another
Okay.
programming session. So let's make a little bit of announcement and start the stream live on Twitch.
Come on. Give me someone who's doing real programming.
Maybe I should go do that.
We're doing, basically the
That's
same
someone just linked
So
someone
maybe
who's
once we get to the
playing
Lost City, we maybe explore
Pillars
that
of
a little more.
Eternity. That's not.
So day 2. We continue in the same thing, but it's a day 2. So I'm gonna give the link to where we're doing that, twitch.tv/study, and I'm gonna ping everyone who's interested.
Okay, I'm just gonna go. We're getting a lot of random. Why not Soding? Because he's not live. Like, do you guys know raids? Do you understand raids?
So that's basically what we're gonna have in here. I'm gonna close that. It's unnecessary. This one doesn't look like a loop.
How is our...
Yeah, there we go. So this is a day 2.
Okay, someone's doing
Just,
some kind of
rating the entire
assembly
live
language.
to-
Unity game
to be
developer and
asynchronous
modder. Okay,
in one
let's just
stream,
go to
so
the
it's okay
channel.
to make another stream.
Let's just go to
So
software and
hopefully
game
I'm not
development
doing
and
it right
see
now
who's
as I
going on.
was,
What have we got going on?
last time.
DevOps with Rust. Oh, it's Advent of Code time, so we're just going to be full. Okay, this looks like programming again, but when I clicked on her, she was doing baking recipes.
Because I think I just
So
cleaned
that's-
up the solution a little bit. Right.
Game Dev Friday,
So
Winter
actually,
Game
I
Dev, it
finished
snowed
it.
outside.
Right, so I didn't do much, right? So I just moved everything.
I mean,
synchronous
this looks
to,
like
uh,
some
situation
programming.
to
Solo
as
Dev
a
Jam
sync
starting.
module, right, so this is where I'm
What is this?
You might as
What do
well
I need
actually
help
take a
with?
look at the compiler, latest compiler.
This looks like somebody else's game. Like, I think I recognize this
Just to
game.
be on the track.
That doesn't
so
look
I'm
like
gonna use the
programming.
branch of the master. Right, there we go. And so let me see. Is there any latest build and stuff?
Solo Dev. I guess that's happening this weekend, whatever this is.
We used 10
Waiting for
threads.
the. I see. People are hanging out waiting for the theme to be announced.
Let's upgrade it just in case.
So it's a bad time to raid.
So, okay, so there is a date
Streamentwicklung.
right, an entire new module for daytime with shit ton of contracts and stuff.
Oh man, everything is like Advent of Code.
So anyway, so what else?
Colin
finally, we have a
Bellino,
module for
let's see.
cosine. Would you look at that? Finally, they shipped cosine.
Oh,
with
he's
stuff.
doing some asset
So
processing.
anyways,
All right, that's a good topic. We'll
Stork meat.
we'll raid that.
Okay, so we got some subs. Fuck.
That like
Okay, hello, everyone.
I see that and I'm like,
I'd
okay,
like
that
to actually bring the dashboard
looks like
in.
real work.
So just a second. Give me 1 sec, guys. Give me 1 second. We're gonna actually.
All right,
start this.
thanks everybody for coming by. We'll do some more
So
streams.
pop out activity feed.
See you
and what we
later.
have in here. Thank you so much. The code file for Twitch Prime. let's call this whole the website. And thank you so much, Evermore.
Non, c'est juste mon chat qui marche. I'm sorry, what? Oh, hello. Okay, now I understand why my chat died. Hello. Wow, I can't even see who added me. Hello. Welcome. Oh wow, thanks, John. Yeah, hello, welcome, welcome everyone. I'm working on a small game for for a game jam, which unfortunately I just broke, but it's a small 2D first person dungeon crawler. Yeah, written in J.